With the election just 10 days away, naturally, most of the attention is focused on the very tight campaign for the White House. But control of the Senate is also up for grabs, and some key races that will determine control are just as close as the presidential race. Joining us with 5 of them is Reid Wilson. He is editor-in-chief of National Journal Hotline and a political polling expert. It's great to have you with us, Reid. Thanks for being with us in studio. Massachusetts, clearly a big one that people are watching. The Republican Scott Brown going up against the Democrat Elizabeth Warren. It looked initially like it might be tight, but now it looks like the Democrat has pulled way ahead.
Well, let's start with the basics. First of all, there are 53 Democrats in the Senate, 47 Republicans. Republicans need to net 4 seats. They need to pick up a net of 4 seats to take control of to guarantee control of the Senate. In Massachusetts, though, their problems start to mount. Senator Scott Brown, you'll remember, took over for Ted Kennedy after a special election in January of 2010. Now, Republicans are starting to get a little pessimistic on Scott Brown's chances. The most recent polls we've seen show Elizabeth Warren leading by a significant margin.
In Indiana, this was Richard Lugar's seat, but we have, it was thought that Richard Murdoch probably had the edge there. Then he made the remark about rape this past week that got a lot of attention. How does it look for him now? Here's
another problem on the Republican path to 51. Some Republican candidates have sort of shot themselves in the foot. And recently, we've seen some real dynamic activity in the Indiana Senate race. Democrats just released a poll that showed them up 7. Republicans released an internal survey that showed them tied. Well, if you're tied in a Republican state, and that's what you're bragging about, that tells me that the Murdoch campaign is in real trouble. Congressman Joe Donnelly looks like he is now taking a lead in a race that really should be a safe Republican seat.
Wisconsin is another very tight race. How do you see that breaking?
Call this one the purest toss-up in America. You've got former Governor Tommy Thompson, Congresswoman Tammy Baldwin. Tommy and Tammy, a nice way to confuse people there.
Alliteration.
But this is, Tommy Thompson hasn't been in office since 2000 when he left to become Health and Human Services Secretary for George W. Bush. He has run sort of a weak campaign. Republicans have had a lot of success in Wisconsin, but it's sort of a new generation of Republicans. And Tommy Thompson is of the previous generation. So I'm watching really closely to see whether or not this means Wisconsin is becoming a serious swing state, not just in this year's presidential and this year's Senate, but off into the future, too.
What about North Dakota? This was Kent Conrad's seat, a Democratic seat. It's up for grabs this time?
It certainly is. Kent Conrad is retiring. Congressman Rick Berg, the Republican, was elected in 2010, but he was elected after Democrats spent about $2.5 million in North Dakota, a very small state, to define him. That means his unfavorable ratings are very high, and the woman he's running against, former Attorney General Heidi Heitkamp, is very popular throughout the state. So,
but the poll numbers show her significantly behind here, 10 points.
They do. There's one recent poll that shows her down 10 points, 50 to 40. I'm not sure I believe that, and I'm not sure both of the parties believe that, too. They think this race is a little bit closer, although they think Rick Berg is ahead. Heitkamp, though, a rare Democrat in a very Republican state who's got a good shot at keeping what is now a Democratic seat.
In Montana, another story where you have a Democrat fighting to keep his seat, but the Republicans look like they're pulling ahead.
There you go. Senator John Tester, the most vulnerable Senate Democrat running for re-election this year. Most polls show a very tight race with Congressman Denny Rehberg. This is a race that has been essentially tied since Rehberg got into the race. Montana only has 1 congressional seat, so the same number of people vote for Rehberg as did for Tester in 2006. So here it is, the clash of the titans. This is a race that Republicans absolutely must have if they're going to recapture the majority on November 6th.
All right, Reid Wilson, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.